49, we hear Jesus speak for the very first time. Well, I'm going to listen because it's the first time that we hear Jesus speaking. And what he says has to do with place. He said, why are you looking for me, Mom and Dad? Don't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Boom. Lands us right in the temple complex here. And the question is, what is that about? What is this story about? There are two elements of this story, an envelope structure, beginning and end, where Luke makes sure we center our attention on the right idea as we enter the core of the story. And when we get that, then we'll be able to read the story more effectively for what it's about. Luke chapter 2, verse 40, and the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom. Physical maturation, cognitive maturation. Go to the end of the story. Luke 2, chapter 52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. Physical maturation, cognitive maturation. Luke tells this story because it's a story about Jesus growing intellectually. And that's what this place is about. We'll come to that in a moment. Let's build the story back. Jesus has come down here, age 12, in order to go to one of the high festivals here in Jerusalem. And as he enters this sphere, he begins to ask the questions that he had not had answered. Sometimes my wife and I speak at air shows on our joint venture building air show, and that's how the whole thing goes. Wait for the aircraft to go by, start the presentation again. So I feel like I'm back in that rhythm. So here's the thing that's revealed about Jesus in this story that I just love and don't always think about. I think about him as the Son of God, but I don't think of him as that 100% human who's also the son of Mary and Joseph. And so just like me, Jesus had cognitive development. Have you ever thought about that before? Jesus had to grow his understanding. So on the divine side of things, he knew everything. On the human side, he knew nothing. He had to grow that. And he even alludes to that later when he's engaging the Pharisees and says, search the scriptures and see that they testify about me. I've done it, right? I have found who I am and what my purpose and destiny is by studying the text. So when did he start doing that? In the home of Mary and Joseph. Oh, pity that couple who had to answer the questions that Jesus asked. Pity the poor rabbi in Nazareth who's getting hit with these questions, right? You know that kid in the class, right? And then, you've exhausted the supply of answers available to you in little rural Nazareth. And so where do you go next? The place of learning. The temple was not just a place of worship, but it was the place of high education. It's where the best teachers in Jerusalem were. And they taught on these stairs. They're called the rabbi's teaching stairs in some of the Midrashic Jewish literature. The rabbi's teaching stairs. So it may have been on these stairs that Jesus was sitting with the best educators of his day, and he's asking those penetrating questions. And that's what the text says. They were amazed at the questions that he was raising among them. And when it came time to go home, Mary and Joseph started off. Each assumed that Jesus was in the company of the other. Apparently they weren't together. They get a full day's walk out and, oh no, where's the kid? Look and look and look. They made this incredible search, nowhere to be found. All you can do is take the day's journey back, and where do they find him? Right here it comes, right? After 3 days, I'm at verse 46, chapter 2 of Luke. After 3 days, they found him in the temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Why is he asking them questions? Not to teach them, but so that he can learn. he amazes. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. So Jesus was asking and answering questions. He had already developed some of the answers, but he was still working, trying to grow himself. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished, and Mom said, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." By the way, that idea of searching or looking 7 times in here. Grew in wisdom, searching, looking. It's interesting that Luke keeps hammering away at that theme with the verb. Now we come to it. Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Do you hear a conversation at home behind that? Jesus, when you get to Jerusalem, you can ask your questions. Right? When you get to Jerusalem, then you can ask your questions. And so he remains here not because he's disobedient, but because he has this passionate desire to grow his understanding of who he is and what he needs to do. He knows he's different. He knows that he is unique. And what I find so striking about this is he's just like me, having to grow and mature my understanding. He understands the struggle of learning and growth. And if that's coming on your ears with as a fresh thought, remember that Jesus could not be my substitute unless he was authentically human in every way. Someone who could be, as Hebrews says, tested in every way, just as I am, and yet never sinned. That means he had to learn and grow. And this story that we're talking about fits right here because this is the place where he had the best chance at the human level to get the answers to those questions. It relies on something we don't often think about when we read the story. The temple was a place of higher education, and Jesus had to be here because he couldn't get the answers from others in Nazareth. Yeah? That's a story you can't move out of the space. Because if you do, it suddenly doesn't have the same verb that it does here. Another story that belongs